All right. There are probably some Hokie fans here. There are probably some Miami fans here. There are probably, some folks from every walk of college football. And they're probably wondering, wow, I wonder how Virginia Tech fans are feeling right now. And if you couldn't gather it from the title of this podcast, I did pick a couple of words. Number one is crestfallen. The definition is sad and disappointed. Another word is devastated. It is to cause someone severe and overwhelming shock or grief. And another word would be distraught, deeply upset and agitated after Miami defeats the Hokies 38-34 on national television on Friday Night Football in the most unbelievable turn of events at the end of the game, where you go from we're going to lose, we just won, we're going to review, there's no way they can overturn it. They do overturn it, but we're going to break it down from the officiating to the coaching to the playing, every angle of it. But Pat, I think it just, for starters, it's just, I've never felt like this before after a football game, ever. I've never felt like this after any sporting event, ever.
It's really nice that it was Friday night, so we had a little bit of Saturday to kind of just process it a little bit, because that was one of the worst Saturdays I've ever had, and I would not have been able to record if it was a Saturday game and a Sunday podcast, just because I too many thoughts. My name is Pat. We got Billy Ray over there. We're both in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are the Sons of Saturday. Should we talk about Charlotte right now? Since got back from our field trip.
Sure. Drain the swamp. Just a disgusting showing of the ACC. Pat is sharing it on YouTube. If you're there, hit us with a like, and please give us your thoughts on the ACC in the comments. Pat, shout out to you. Head on down to Walgreens or some craft store. Put together a couple of signs where we were amongst Panthers fans and Bengals fans who, were probably very confused. But some got it. We did get a couple of honks. We did have a gentleman in cowboy boots who seemed to enjoy it. But I really don't think, we've been dramatic on this podcast before. I have to tip my cap to America for the last 72 hours, 48 hours. Everybody is in unison that this wasn't like questionable or I don't know what happened here. Everybody's kind of on the same page of, I can't believe this just happened to you guys and this was wrong and I'm sorry. Just devastating.
I thought Florida State was down bad. We're on the equal plane of down badness as far as like just taking shots to the gut this season. But man, after that game on Friday night, all you have to say is just, man, how could we possibly? I thought Rutgers was like a really, really, really low point. Being in that stadium, watching us go down by what seemed like 100 points, making that comeback, and then being let down not easily at all. How could we get worse than that? This is like the JMU and Boise State game in 2010, consecutive weeks. That happened. Boise was on a Monday night, Labor Day night. JMU was on Saturday. This is very similar. We got Rutgers last Saturday, Miami Friday, just a 6-day tough run. And it's just so awful because it comes within 6 days of the Rutgers loss. We still have a bad taste in our mouth from the Vanderbilt game. And just knowing that this team playing, being prepared, we have played to the level of our opposition every single week. And we're 3 possessions away from being an undefeated ranked team, 5-0, 1-0 in conference. And we're 2-3. Billy Ray said on the last episode, he said, hey, we're probably at the worst case scenario of how September could have gone so far, sitting at 2-2. We're like, all right, let's go give Miami a challenge. let's go play our hearts out in Miami and see what we can build on. And you can absolutely build on this game, but the worst case scenario actually wasn't the worst case scenario. I think now it is. But
the worst case scenario is worse after living through it. I think this is what it comes down to is I'm not sure that my takeaway is this team should or could be undefeated. While that is true, we lost 3 games by a combined score of 10 points. But if you handle business against both of Rutgers and Vanderbilt or one of those 2 teams, you can hang your hat on if you're, if you have 1 or 2 losses. You say, we just competed against one of the best teams in the conference and one of the best teams in college football. And our mission is to go out and to hopefully play them again in Charlotte. And, you go out, you finally play up to your potential. You finally look like the team that was the bill of goods that we were sold in June, July, and August. Come out prepared, don't come out sluggish, punch them in the mouth, fight back from adversity. Where you're playing fast, you're playing hard, you're playing physical against one of the best teams in the country. And here we sit after what should be a look at what we can do when we come out and play our game. Let's play the rest of the year. And that's still very possible. But now we're 2-3. We're 2-3 leaving September. And I know you have this written down, Pat. I heard from people who I haven't heard from in years, who don't care about college football, who don't care about Virginia Tech, who probably don't even know that I have a podcast. People who I used to work with in the technology space, like my old software developer reached out to me and said, man, Va Tech, that looked really sad. I was like, yes, it was. It's just really, really, really tough.
I got a text message from Tommy Rhodes. I know for a fact Tommy Rhodes will not hear this because he hadn't texted me since September 2nd, 2018. I looked at the thread and he was like, that was crazy. And I was like, dude, yeah. I just get the idea that like I think it was Pete B, Pry Nose Ball, like everyone was getting hit up from people they haven't talked to or seen in years. And I just know that so many of you couldn't peel yourself from the couch yesterday on Saturday. Like it was one of those days, unless you're like Billy Ray and had some cool stuff to do down in Clemson.
Well, we're gonna talk about that on the next podcast. But even when I was in Clemson, I a lot of people were like, "Oh, you went to Virginia Tech. I really wish you could have pulled it off. You guys got hosed." I was like, I also wish we could have pulled it off, and we did indeed get hosed. So last thing before we turn this over to the game, again, this is the most devastating loss of my lifetime. I cannot think of another comp. I can't. But do you want to give some other games where you feel similarly or where Virginia Tech may have felt similarly?
I think it's really hard not to say that every Hokie fan who was a fan at the time would say Boston College 2007, the Matt Ryan game. And then 3 years later, the Boise State game. I think those 2 games where we were on national television against a top 10 team and didn't get it done. This is certainly in line with that. I also wrote down Johnny Damon hitting the grand salami in Game 7 of the 2004 ALCS into the upper deck at Yankee Stadium. That was a tough one, but a couple games from 2019 I know you had written down here. The Duke game,
yeah,
the Ahmed Hill miss.
The Duke game, the Ahmed Hill miss was obviously a low point. I think the biggest difference is that you didn't have the elation of we just won the game, and then it's like, just kidding, no, you didn't. If Ahmed Hill's shot goes in, you go into overtime, and who knows what happens there. 2019 was just a devastating year from having your heart ripped out. You had the Notre Dame game in 2019. You had the Kentucky game in 2019. You had the Virginia game in 2019. But again, for me, this one absolutely takes the cake. And
I'll even, yeah, Sorry, I mean to jump in here.
No.
I would even throw that you just threw in a 3-pack from 2019. There's also a 3-pack from 2021. West Virginia, where we had it like first and goal and couldn't score. Syracuse and Notre Dame, where we had double-digit leads or 2-possession leads with minutes on the clock and somehow lost both of those games. That was not as crippling, though, just because we had already lost a few. And the hype wasn't there that it was for this team. And I just feel like it was a insult to an already injured fan.
I think it's also fair to throw in. It's a little bit of a different feeling, but the 2016 ACC championship game where you're not expecting to win the game, but you're going against like the gold standard in college football, which Miami is not, but you're going against a Heisman Trophy contender. You have fourth down. If you score a touchdown, you're going for 2. You have a chance to win the game. I know a lot of people walked away from that proud by the effort. And I think that's kind of getting lost in here, is being proud of the effort. It's just the having the win. And I was on my phone and Juliana's phone with Casey Hamrick and Ed Williams. And we're all on the phone and we're just like, dude, this review's been going on for 9 minutes. There's no way they overturn this. And of course, it's overturned. Let's get to the game. Because I can talk about, I could talk about where were you when your heart was ripped out while it was beating for forever. We got a lot of really great haikus. We'll rip through these real quick. But we do thank everybody that wrote in. We have Bijan Peters, Hokies hopes rise high, last second dreams overturned, truth lost in the haze.
Chris Payne says, screw the ACC, screw the ACC's review, screw the ACC. Alex Gomez says, clock mismanagement, indisputable, my ass. Should have kicked the 3. Reasonable Squirrel says, screw you ACC, lying corrupt referees, up yours, Hokies won. Where did you watch this football game?
I watched so I was at a wedding on Friday, thank God. Somewhat. I caught the entire fourth quarter. I was watching in and out on the phone. I was with a Miami fan who, just wasn't talking a whole lot during the game because he kind of came into the game saying, you know what, we're probably going to play down to you guys. And, I hope we are able to squeak it out. And I was chirping him the whole afternoon. I'm glad I didn't see him after the game. But that's what I was doing Friday night.
Watched at Ed's Tavern. Big crew was there. I was like, hey, I'll have a beer per touchdown, thinking I'll have like 2 beers. And it turned into a fun night. But that's why my tweets, I kept saying like cracking open another beer. That was after every single time we had a touchdown. How about some themes from this night? Some themes from the game.
Yeah, I think it's time for just a reset. We're 13 minutes and 50 seconds into this podcast. And I do think that it's worth saying this. We came into this football game having lost to Vanderbilt and having lost to Rutgers and really having no identity, no swagger, nothing to hang our hat on. And going into this game on the podcast, I said I wanted to see preparation. Like, can we come out and look like we have a plan and execute it? We have 5 turnovers on the season. We're losing the explosive game. We're losing the turnover game. We're losing the preparation game. Like, can we just look prepared? And I think Virginia Tech did that. Can we be disciplined? Alignment, assignment, gap integrity. We just went up against one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And you're never going to stop the best quarterback in the country completely. I think we did a really solid job containing him. And then most importantly, I just wanted to see intensity. I just wanted to see our team come out and play with the swagger that we saw against Pittsburgh, that we saw against Syracuse, that we saw against Boston College. And we did that on the road against a top 10 team in the country. And I think that if somebody were to tell you, aside from the officiating stuff, some of the, clock management stuff, and some of the things that we could have avoided, that Virginia Tech, the team that we watched for 4 games play the way that they played, went into Miami and lost the game 34-38. I think every single Virginia Tech fan would have threw their hand up in the air and been like, I would be proud of this team. I would sign up for that result. And that's what we got. It's just the way that we got it leaves you feeling awful. Awful.
It's a bummer because this was the complete game where we saw our coaching staff prepare a game plan to put our players in the best position to succeed. And our players were very much in the best position to succeed on Saturday night. 34 points.
I cannot say enough about the team that came out and played. I really can't. You're down Ollie Jennings. Bashal Tootin is banged up. Kyron Drones has been kicked and run through the mud, and so disappointing. He hasn't played up to his potential. And to come out and play like that is why this, I think, hurts so much. I don't remember if it was Diablo Fan Account or somebody tweeted it. I think it was him. He said, I really like these players and I really like these coaches, and I hope they're able to turn around. And I think this was after last week's loss. And to see them come out and play this way, you don't just play this way after a bad week of practice or mailing it in or quitting on the season. Like, they clearly had a really, Pat, to take your word from last week, they probably had a great week of practice, a great week of preparation, and the team, the football players, did everything they could to win this game. And you have to play basically perfect to beat a team like Miami this year. And they almost did. They almost did. And this would have been the biggest win since Ohio State in 2014. Without a doubt, it would have been the biggest win that we've had in a decade, 10 years ago. And it was just stolen.
It's just stolen. All right, you want to talk about the game management, and then we can talk about officiating.
Yeah.
And then we get into the offense and the defense and the special teams once. There's some questions at the end.
Yeah, let's do the officiating first, because I really want to focus in on the game. And I know that we have some of the clock management stuff listed later. So let's go over some of the questionable calls, because I don't want to spend the whole podcast talking about it. But let's talk about some of these calls.
Okay. Before we talk about the Pearson Prelo hold call, on their last drive, you remember this call where Mansour Delane was held? They called it on the spot of the foul, which looks to be here on like the 43, 44 yard line. They ended up moving this ball back to where it was like a 3rd and 3 or a 3rd and 4, which only would have been like a 5-yard penalty. So this should have been a 10-yard penalty, but it was only 5 yards. I have no idea why this wasn't investigated further, or how they got away with that.
Couldn't tell you either.
I don't know if you remember watching this part. The Kyron Drones horse collar. Just no call.
Yeah.
No call. Consistent with the Miami slant all night. Kyron Drones clearly is getting, it's Kyron Drones. So I don't think he went down from this, but it definitely slowed him up. ACC slant, only undefeated team, Heisman contender, Miami.
I want to point one other play out that I believe was called wrong. I was talking to Coach Holmes about this, and it was on the 1st and 10 play where he completed it to Daquan Felton for a 4-yard gain. That ball was hiked with 1 minute and 8 seconds left. And a lot of people, and rightfully so, were calling, why did Coach Pry not call a timeout? Because you snap the ball at 1:08, and then we don't get the next play off until 36 seconds left on the VT 42. So apparently in the NFL, if a wide receiver goes out of bounds or a runner goes out of bounds, but they're moving backwards, the clock continues to run. From my understanding of the college rules, the clock is actually supposed to stop no matter what direction the ball carrier is headed. So it appears to me, and if I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong, but they applied the NFL rule to us and the clock continued to run. Again, I'm not excusing not getting a timeout, but it's one of the ways that I can think in my head of how that it's explained. and you lose 30 seconds of game time. And I know Daquan fought really hard to get out of bounds. He's a hard guy to get down. But the clock continued to run and burned, ultimately 32 seconds off and puts you at 2nd and 6 on your 42 with 36 seconds left.
We go back to the first half. Malachi Thomas is rolling out to pass the football. He's getting pressured. He throws it down the field. It's not a very good throw. Malachi Thomas is not a quarterback. Like this, I think this was intended for the Virginia Tech receiver running down the field, and it just happened to be a duck. And he gets flagged for intentional grounding, loss of down. Clearly a trick play. This is not our starting quarterback. This is our running back throwing a ball down the field. It looked like he was out of the tackle box. I know there was some explanation, but I think the refs thought he was trying to throw it out of bounds or just throw it to no one. So I didn't like that call either.
For those listening right now, by the way, I don't think we've ever done this. Like, we've never really had a segment for officiating screw-ups. It just felt like there were plenty of them. I do think that it's fair to note as well, we did have 2 of the same number on our field goal attempt before halftime. We had 2 number 17s on the field, which is overwhelmingly frustrating that happened again. And if that were to have gotten called, Patrick, if that were to have gotten called after knocking through a 56-yard field goal, there might have been some couches on fire. That would have been awful. And I cannot believe that something I've never seen happen once could have happened to us twice on the same unit.
Out of control. How about, we never talk about the refs. We don't. I don't think we've ever gotten screwed by referees like this before.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this. PJ Prelow's 60-yard touchdown run. They called a hold on one of the Moore brothers. Nick Saban says, "Oh, just a good block."
Yeah.
That was abhorrent for them to call that back. And yes, we did score a touchdown on that drive. That doesn't matter. It's just another data point for the Miami slant that went on in this game. And also, who knows how the game is different if Prelow does score there. I'm not saying it would go in Virginia Tech's favor if we score there. It gives Miami the ball back with more time on the clock. But it's just another awful, awful call. And did you see how the ref threw it? He threw the flag and then he held the follow through. It was
he did.
Such a strange thing to see. And then the last call looked like Daquan Felton caught the ball. Looked like
I have to say this. I have to say this. This is my opinion. I don't think the refs should have called it a touchdown.
I don't either.
I don't think that there's any universe that the refs should have called it a touchdown. I also think that there should be a rule in college football where if you don't know what happened, because that I think very clearly is what happened. They had no idea what happened, and they were just like, touchdown. You should be able to say, hey, look, we don't know what happened. We're going to take a look at it. So that way you avoid the lights going off and Miami rushing the field or Virginia Tech going live on Instagram after the game is over to then end up being a loss. I think you just got to go take a look at it. I tweeted this from the Suns account that simultaneous possession goes to the offense because I assumed that both kind of came up with the football. When you call it a touchdown and you review it and it's not indisputable what it is, I don't understand how you overturn it. I don't. You can say they never should have called it a touchdown, which I don't think they should have, but overturning it to me is crazy. And so does all of America thinks that it's crazy. So Pat, do you want to, real quick, we did have a official who has been in hot water before, was officiating this football game. I do think the only time that I started to get a little queasy was when they started to show the ACC headquarters during their review, which seemed to take 8.5, 9 minutes. That's when in my head, I was like, they're not going to do this. There's no way. They can't do this. And they did. So
The ACC suspended referee Jerry Magallanes and his crew after the controversial ending to the Miami Duke game. This is 4 or 5 years ago. This is the game that had like a half dozen laterals from Miami to beat Duke as time was expiring. The league pointed out 4 mistakes that the officials made on the 8 lateral kickoff return that gave Miami a last-second win over Duke. And the league suspended everyone involved for 2 games. So you're telling me that a referee and his crew had been suspended because of 4 mistakes made in a Miami football game, how they were that bad that they were suspended to allow this crew to go out and officiate another University of Miami Hurricanes football game is absolutely asinine and extremely ignorant of the conference. Extremely ignorant of the conference to do that. Clearly there's a slant here towards Miami from the ACC refs. Clearly there's an agenda to keep Miami undefeated based on the ACC stature in the grand scheme of college football, not having any undefeated teams, being a conference that is not looked at in the same light as the Big Ten, as the SEC, but wanting a seat at the table and wanting their Heisman contender quarterback to continue to have the campaign that he is having. Clearly, there's a slant to give Miami the football game.
So I'm not going to go as far as to say clearly there's a conspiracy. I am going to say, though, it's pretty crazy that Jerry M. was on the crew for this Duke game and was on the crew for this game as well. And
he is the crew. He's the head man. He's the captain of the ship.
If he was captaining the ship in that Duke game and captaining the ship in this, we're looking at 2 Titanic fallouts from the officiating crew from Captain Magallanes.
Not Magellan.
Not Magellan, no. So hats off to America for being on our side. The comp that I got from my buddy Steve Shanley on this result was the Bush push. He's a big Notre Dame fan. Notre Dame lost at home 34-31 to the Trojans, where Reggie Bush illegally pushed Matt Leinart into the end zone after USC tried to call a timeout when they did not have any remaining after Matt Leinart fumbled the ball backwards on the last play of the game. So moral victories, Patrick?
Wait, I'm just going to say, with all due respect to your Bush push, I mean, this is the better comp is the Danny Cole game.
Sure.
I think it's a lot better of a comp. And I know we didn't talk about that in our heartbreaking losses, and that's definitely up there. I think it's a bowl game loss is a little different than a regular season loss.
Mm-hmm.
So much on the line. There's a lot of parallels here with the Michigan Sugar Bowl game and Danny Cole. First of all, you got to make a spectacular catch. It's ruled a catch. I believe Danny Cole's catch would have ended the game or at least put us up a score prior to Michigan. Yeah, because we kicked a field goal and Michigan ended up scoring a touchdown, I think is what happened, or we missed the field goal. It doesn't matter. This was so similar, where you had an overturned call when there was clearly not undisputable evidence. It's honestly like we need to change the rules and remove that word, because the amount of times that indisputable evidence is completely ignored, like that is the policy that the referee and the officiants and whoever's in Charlotte are required to follow, and they don't follow it. You cannot watch that play involving Daquan Felton saying that he scored a touchdown and then telling me it's indisputable that you could overturn that. Absolutely not. Not objectively. So a lot of parallels here. I can't believe they did it, but I knew that if Miami and Virginia Tech, the roles were reversed in that situation, Miami would have won the football game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really hard to argue that. Similar to how Michigan defeated us in the Sugar Bowl. All State's Sugar Bowl. Michigan's alumni CEO of All State. There's another conspiracy for you.
Yeah.
The moral victory thing.
Pat was watching moon landings before we got on the podcast today.
It's been a really tough fanhood. So I really like how we looked on Friday night. I really like how we were prepared to play football on Friday night. I also think taking a moral victory, like I'll have a moral victory after we go and beat Stanford next week. Like I don't think there's a moral victory in. We were 20-point underdogs for a reason. It's because of how we played against Rutgers and how we played against Vanderbilt.
And Old Dominion and Marshall.
Like, if you line up Virginia Tech and Miami week 1, or if you looked at this game in August and said, hey, Virginia Tech is going to go to Miami. It's going to be one of the biggest games in the conference all year. Both teams should probably be undefeated. I don't know, though. Hopefully Miami can get by Florida in week 1. That's what people were saying.
Yeah.
Like people were looking at this game and saying, all right, it's going to be a single digit line. It's probably going to be a 1-possession football game. Virginia Tech is one of the best classes in the ACC this year. Really excited to see what happens Friday Night Lights down in Miami. And it absolutely was an absolutely epic game. It fit the bill on that. But the team sleptwalked through September, quite frankly. Like, we're 2-3. We were underdogs for a reason. So I just can't get behind a moral victory until we go to Stanford and we kick their ass on Saturday in Palo Alto, because this is really where the season takes a turn. You could either go to Stanford, go on the road, keep your head up high, no pouting, and show the country that this is a football team that is going to come prepared like they did against Miami. And they're going to go beat Stanford like Clemson did on Saturday. And they're going to come back to Lane Stadium, get a bye week, and then you get Thursday night Boston College, and then Georgia Tech at home on homecoming, and you beat the hell out of both of them. That's the Virginia Tech I want to see.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, that's it. You can go to Stanford, lose the football game, throw in the towel on the rest of the year. Good luck seeing if anyone wants to show up against Boston College or Georgia Tech. Now, granted, this fan base will, because this fan base always does. But you want a moral victory? Go out and beat Stanford. That will get me fired up.
Football game. Hokies lose 34-38, 38-34. You don't like when I do that. Time of possession was in favor of Miami, 33 minutes and 42 seconds to 26 minutes and 18 seconds. Miami went for 508. Tech went for 394. And Virginia Tech ran 66 plays to Miami's 70. Hit me with some offense here.
You want a moral victory?
Yeah.
23 first downs and 9 of 14 on third down. Converting third down, 9 of 14. That is really an improvement.
Good football.
Really good football. On the road, in conference against a top 10 team. That's really good. I'm excited about that. Ran the ball. Tootin had 141 yards, had 206 rushing yards on the night. Anytime Virginia Tech exceeds 200 rushing yards, they probably scored a lot of points.
Yep.
Or they probably were in the game if they didn't win the game. Bashal Tootin, again, the best player on our football team, 19 carries, 141, 1 touchdown, 7.4 yards per carry. On the season, guys, he's almost at that 100 mark. 86 carries, 532 yards. So he's at the 500 yard at 5 games in. It's pretty good. 6.2 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns, 9 total if you include a receiving touchdown. Had his career long at Virginia Tech, 55-yard touchdown on Friday night. And this was one of the biggest plays of the first half. I know that a lot of big plays happened in the second half, but this was one of the biggest plays of the game. He tied the game up at 14 for us and kept us in the football game after Cam Ward had marched down the field 2 consecutive drives. I got to tell you, though, Billy Ray, he is banged up.
Yeah.
And I know that I don't know how much we're going to run him at Stanford. Obviously, hopefully enough to win the game, but we need to be conservative with his carries. I know I've been pulling the toot for the last few weeks here because, again, he got 9 carries against Vanderbilt. I can't forget that. I just have a really hard time forgetting that he only touched the ball 9 times against Vanderbilt on running plays. But 4 straight 100-yard efforts. It's going to continue to confirm he is the nucleus of this offense. and he's far away the best player on our offense.
I have to say, he's been through so much, Kyron Drones. In going to camp with his cousin Cam, to the way that the first 4 weeks panned out, getting banged up, having little to no time. Eddie Royal put out 2 great videos going over what it looks like when Kyron Drones has some time and when he doesn't. Look, did he play perfect? No. Threw an interception that was off of the hands of Aiden Green, but 19 of 33, 189 yards through the air, an 83.4 QBR. He rushed for 52 yards, had a long of 20. I'm so proud of Kyron Drones. I'm so proud of how he prepared. I loved how he led the team. I loved how he looked cool, calm, and collected. I mean, you go down 14-7 against Miami on the road. You have to engineer this last drive to try to win the football game. I don't think you could have asked for a whole lot more from number one. And I don't know if there was somebody who had a bigger spotlight on him than number one. And he played his heart out against the number one sack getting defense in the country and put us in a position to win the game. Did have a bunch of drops, I think, from the wide receiving core, some plays that you want to have back. I was very impressed with Kyron this week.
That play where he was flushed out of the pocket, ran all the way out. Like, he was so deep, ran all the way to his right, throws across his body and finds Aiden Green, who didn't give up on the play, and scores that touchdown in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was epic.
I really want to tip my cap to Aiden Green too. Like, it would have been very easy for him to just kind of mail it in after that first drive, where a ball comes off of your hands and Miami scores, and you kind of watch your early lead evaporate. Finished with 3 catches for 33 yards and a touchdown. I thought he played really well outside of that play. I think he may have had one more drop on a second down over the middle of the field. I'm having a little bit of trouble remembering it, but that
was the interception in the first quarter.
Yeah, I thought he may have had one other drop, but I might be misremembering. But again, Kyron spread the ball around. Steven Gosnell had 4 catches. Lane had 4 catches. Benji had 3 catches. Aiden Green 3. Bashal Tootin 4. Quan Felton 1. Harrison St. Germain had a catch too.
You know what Harrison St. Germain.
I know. We'll get to that. But really, really impressed by Kyron.
Yeah, he showed out well. I think so much confidence from this football team off of turnovers, with excluding the Caleb Spencer interception. We scored on the other 2 possessions, and this team really took advantage. Imagine if we kicked a field goal on that first possession instead of punching it in.
Yeah.
We came out hungry for those first points of the game, and kind of having one of those, like, I don't know what to do with my hands moments.
Yeah.
We had the early lead. Didn't expect Cam Ward to fumble on the first drive of the game. Had some fun plays too. I know there's a balance, right? There's a balance. When the play works, it's awesome. I'm talking about the gadget play with Colin Schley, the double reverse to Jalen Lane. Jalen Lane punches it in for a 20-yard touchdown. Just really good utilization of our skilled playmakers.
Yep.
And just really proud of how Tootin ran. Every single play, it seemed like he was falling forward and either picking up first downs, one of the 23 first downs that we picked up on the night. I think Kyron ran well as well. He had over 50 yards on the ground on 9 carries. Yeah, but I know that there were a couple areas where we're not so good on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of cute screen plays again. I feel like we didn't really throw the ball downfield that much. And I think if we are picking nits the play calling for Virginia Tech on the last drive before Miami's last touchdown was a 3-and-out. And 2 of those were passes that barely took any time off the clock. I know.
Yeah, there's 9 minutes left. I don't think you're trying to run clock there. I'm really not trying to step on your lead here. I have a very hard time picking nits with this offense. The offense specifically, if you're going to go out and you're going to score 34 points. I think that our offense had an unfortunate punt in a year where we were punting it a whole lot. But to come out here and score 34, I have a really hard time pointing any fingers at Tyler Bowen this week, personally.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about maybe using Tootin a little bit more at the end, I know that guy was gassed.
Mm-hmm.
It just sucks because Drones threw behind, was it Gosnell on first down?
Yep.
And, it was a good call. The execution wasn't there. What else do we have, Billy Ray? Offensive line.
Pretty proud of this unit. I'll call it how I see it. We rushed for over 200 yards. We gave up 2 sacks versus a team that had the most sacks in the country coming into the game. You don't rush for 200 yards by accident. This is, I said it on the preview podcast, Miami is built like an SEC team. They have a massive offensive line. They are littered at the skill position on both sides of the ball. Really disruptive defensive line. And I think Bowen and the offensive line did a good job giving Kyron enough time and putting him into creative positions. One last thing on Kyron. He has every tool that you want. He's still learning how to be a pocket passer, but he has an incredibly strong arm. He is big. He's athletic. Man, it's so tough. It really is, because I'm so proud of this football team, and you're so close to having kind of a season-changing win. But as far as the offensive line is concerned, I have a really hard time being too harsh here.
The game management on the final drive.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Daquan Felton. So
yeah.
Do you think there's a misunderstanding?
I think there's a misunderstanding on the rules. Again, I think it's inexcusable that we didn't use the timeout when 32 seconds tick off the clock. But I guess I could say this too when we wrap up on the offense. And again, I'm really excited on how we spread the ball around. I don't know what we can do to get Daquan Felton more involved. And I'm not saying that this doesn't mean that he's being targeted or if he's not getting open or what the situation is. And he made a tremendous play, I believe, to put us in a position to be called for a touchdown on the last play of the game. He had 1 catch for 4 yards. And I'm looking at his season log through 5 games. We have 11 catches for 78 yards and 1 touchdown. And coming into the year, Daquan Felton was by many, and it's because he has the talent to do it. I think he can be one of the best wide receivers in this conference, and it just has not happened up until this point. His first catch in this football game was on the last drive of the game. And again, this is not me saying we're not targeting him or we're not featuring him enough, because we have a lot of talented wide receivers, but Ollie Jennings hasn't played in weeks. And you'd think his production would increase, and it just hasn't turned out that way. So I'd be remiss not to mention that.
I was watching Ole Miss Kentucky on Saturday, and I saw Trey Harris on Ole Miss score a touchdown. Do you think Trey Harris and Daquan Felton have like the exact same build? They run exactly the same. They wear the same number. I was like, oh man, we need to get the ball in our number 9's hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to find a way. And when I say we, I mean him, our offense, our quarterback, everybody. I don't know how he's not, getting the ball or getting open or whatever. But again, it all comes down to this is a moral victory if we're able to come out and as a team play the way that we did against Miami. Let's flip the ball over to defense. And actually, we disagree a little bit on the defense, but I'll let you start it.
I put in my notes the defense did not play awful. Like they played good enough to keep us in the football game, which I guess is really all you can ask for. Like I did see Cam Ward put up, 500 plus yards. I'm not going to give the defense an A plus. I'll probably give them a B for their efforts on Saturday night. Like I said multiple times during the game, Cam Ward is going to do Cam Ward things.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was going to be able to shed two tacklers and do a shovel pass for a play that'll get them down to the 1 yard line. Like that was not on my bingo board. But I did think he was going to make some pretty incredible plays on the run, escaping the pocket, made some moves with his feet. He did it all for this football team. I knew we were going to have like 2 or 3 WTF Cam Ward just did that moments of the game, and they certainly happened. I was excruciatingly upset when we hit him as he was throwing, and the ball kind of went straight up in the air, and one of their receivers came down with it. Similarly, how upset I was when Xavier Restrepo falls down on his route and makes a play on his butt and catches the ball. This was on 4th down when this happened, if I'm not mistaken.
I think to your bingo board thing, like I have to tip my cap to their team. Like they had to make, we played so well. They had to make once in a season plays multiple times and did it. And when we say, X wasn't on my bingo board, that's what you get with a Heisman Trophy finalist. I think back to watching RG3 in some games that they absolutely should have lost and did not lose because he did Heisman Trophy stuff. I think back to, Lamar Jackson or insert quarterback who won Heisman Trophy here. There are going to be games where they don't play to what you're used to seeing, and they're still going to be magnificent when it matters. And he was. His final stat line, he's 24 of 38 for 343, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He ran for 57 yards on 10 carries with a touchdown as well. And where I disagree, and I think if you give him a B, I agree with you. I just want to give credit to our defense. This is the second week in a row we've completely stymied the running game of a good running team. We held Monangai to under 100 yards last week. Everybody in America saw what he did against Washington. Rutgers averaged 7.2, 6.5, and 5.6 rushing yards in every game, and it will average 2.9 versus us. We held Miami to 165 yards rushing. We held Cam Ward to his lowest QBR of the year. He had his lowest completion percentage. We forced 3 turnovers. I think we got after the quarterback. And I feel like we disrupted them enough to where, we gave ourselves a real chance. We held Miami to 10 points total in the second and third quarter of this football game. They scored 10 points in the second and third quarter. We had 5 drives of theirs that ended in turnovers or punts. Again, this is the second-rated offense in America. You are not going to stop the second-rated offense in America. I don't care who goes out there and who plays. You can only hope to contain them. I think that was the assignment coming into this football game. And I think if you want to say box checked or box unchecked, they checked that box. And it's a tough assignment. It's a tough assignment for a third-year coordinator to go out there and play against a Heisman Trophy favorite coming into this week. So
probably the best quarterback we've played since Trevor Lawrence in 2020. Before that, Deshaun Watson in 2016. I mean, and the way he's fun to watch. Cam Ward is a really fun football player to watch. I loved the way our defense pinned their ears back and got in his face.
You could see too, because they did this after the interception, one of which was called back. they all were watching his celebration, and they were all getting in his, like, this is what I loved is Coach Holmes take this in the group chat. It's like, hey, it looks like the team has like a mojo and understood the rivalry and played into the rivalry. And I love that. I love that. It didn't look like, for the first time in 5 weeks, Virginia Tech very clearly was like, we're not going to be the nail. If you're the hammer, we're also going to be a hammer. And one of us is going to break by the end of this football game. And that's what they did. They didn't play scared, didn't play timid. They came out there and they played. And man, what an effort.
I loved seeing Mose Phillips make that interception, running down the sideline, and then mocking the Cam Ward.
Yeah.
I tweeted out, I love the energy that this defense is showing. This is the energy that we needed to bring to Miami to keep us in the football game. And also, every Hokie fan knows that they love seeing a guy wearing number 18 picking off a quarterback in Miami and running it down the sideline. I know Brandon Flowers, 2006, comes to mind down at the old Orange Bowl. Sacks, we had APR had one. I hope he's okay. I know he left the game early. Caleb Woodson had another sack.
Yeah.
He's been really fun to watch and fun to see him develop this year. And Aeneas Peebles also had a sack as well.
Peebles played a good game. I think this was Peebles' best game all around. He was extremely disruptive, especially in the fourth quarter. I think he played a great game in the fourth quarter. That interior D-line played really, really well. And I think they figured out their rotation. Caleb Spencer, what a cool story. Transfer from Miami, gets an interception against his old teammate. It looks like, and I wish it didn't take 5 weeks to get to this point, but it looks like we've figured out that we have everybody in the correct spot on the defense. So again, something to build on. Are you good to shift to special teams, or do you have anything else on defense before I go?
I was going to say, good for Caleb Spencer.
Yeah.
He was fun to watch too. It looks like we just ran out of gas on that his interception. Went for 77 yards. It's the longest Virginia Tech interception return in a really long time.
On that play, Pat, if you look, I've watched it a couple times. It looked like everybody on the field was completely exhausted. If you watch the offensive linemen trying to track him down, they had no interest in tackling him. They were completely exhausted. I think he was completely exhausted when he got down there. I wish that he would have cut it inside, or if one of the guys in his convoy would have blocked him, because he probably scores. And this is the drive where we end up faking the field goal. But great play by him. Special team. Go ahead.
I still have some notes that I think things that we need to talk about. Getting beat over the top by Cam Ward on 3rd and short. Everyone was fooled on that play. You know what it reminded me of? Remember Georgia Tech 2017, where we had, who did we have wide open in the end zone on like the 4th and 1? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I can't remember.
Josh Jackson.
Cam Phillips, where we ran it instead of throwing it.
We'll have to watch the YouTube on it. But essentially had a dude wide open. Let's see. Cam got loose on a handful of 3rd downs, including his touchdown run, the Restrepo catch from his behind, and just the failure to wrap up with the ball in the 27. You called it a Heisman play. I mean, I definitely think it was a Heisman play. Like, it had shades of Johnny football versus Duke in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, but also like Burgos and Spencer had Ward in their grasp, and they both went high and couldn't bring him down. Like, I know they're watching that play a lot, and as far as just tackling 101 and needing to wrap up and go low. And Lawson got stiff-armed by the dude who caught the ball. Was the guy Williams who caught the ball? Everyone was saying that he was like a ninth year senior or something.
Yeah, he needs an Indeed NIL deal or something, a LinkedIn NIL deal.
He went down to the 1 yard line. I mean, incredible play by both of them.
Yeah.
Definitely want to tip your cap to both of them, but you just hate what could have been. What if we hold them to a field goal there? It's a completely different football game.
Yep.
It's a tie game, and we're actually going down to win, and all we need is a Johnny Love 65-yarder because he's got it in him. But let's see. Special teams. Yeah, go ahead. Jump in, Billy Ray.
Pour one out for unbelievable field goal kicking. We saw a 57-yarder. We saw a 56-yarder from Borigalis and Love. Unbelievable to end the half. Virginia Tech only punted the ball twice. Pretty miraculous. I think both teams only punted the ball twice because Miami did not score, only on 5 of their drives, and they had 3 turnovers. So I believe they only punted twice. So there's that. And our new favorite segment, which is what did the Hokies do on special teams this week? And I have to say, Andy Bitter said this in an interview or coach's availability last week. And he basically said, look, if you look at every play, special teams has done well, but there's always a play that's just awful every week. And it's not that they're making the same mistake they did this week with the 2 double numbers, but we have something every single week. So, Pat, if you want to recap and just get where we had this week, that would be helpful.
PSA, please don't have us do this next week. Please do not have us need to do this segment again. Special teams needs to bat 1,000. There's no excuses that Virginia Tech football is having to have this conversation every single week because there's a blunder every single week. You guys know about Vanderbilt. 2 number zeros on the same play. Marshall, we had a punt blocked that ended up turning into a touchdown on the next play. Had a field goal blocked at Old Dominion. The Rutgers fumbled punt return that turned into 7 points, spotting them 7 right in the first quarter, right out the gate. And then here down at Miami, the squib kick after we took a timeout when Miami, we could have just totally ran the clock down, first of all.
Yeah.
We call a timeout with 25 seconds left instead of letting it tick down to 3 seconds?
What I didn't understand is at first when I got phone calls about this before I rewatched the game and looked at the game log. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, maybe we took a timeout because it was 3rd down and we thought we were too far out to kick the field goal. And then after talking about it, we were like, oh, John Love has, the strength of 1,000 gods and can kick this field goal. So let's trot him out there. But no, it's 4th down. So I have no explanation for taking the field goal. And credit to Coach Pry. He said in the postgame he wished he had that back. I do too. I also wish that we had that back.
Kyle Lowe's averaging 70% of his kicks going back for touchbacks.
Yeah, I don't understand not just kicking it out of the back of the end zone. I think that Miami is probably just trying to get into halftime at that point. Their previous 3 drives were interception, punt. So I don't think that they have any interest in trying to do something there. It doesn't make sense to me. But following the squib kick, you give Miami the ball at basically the 50-yard line. And, they just have to get 12 yards, 15 yards to get into field goal range. And, you go from, hey, we're going into halftime up 24-14. Miami cuts it down to 1 score. And it's
so
just
predictable. So predictable. You knew that they were going to score.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other one here, and I'll say this immediately because I got a text that we faked the field goal. And my immediate reaction was, I can't believe we did that. That's so stupid off of an interception with the lead to do that. And I went back and I looked at the film and I went back and looked at the situation, and I still would not have done it myself, but I think it was an aggressive play call. I think it was against a look that we felt confident we could have gotten the 1st down. My analysis on this is if you miss this it's not just a 10-point swing, which is exactly what it was. You go from getting 3 points to giving up 7, and it's a 10-point swing. In college football, there's such a momentum swing with that is almost exacerbated when you're dealing with 18, or in the case of the 19-year senior, ninth-year senior, a 29-year-old. There's just a bigger momentum switch there. And also, if you're going by the analytics, the way that these two teams were playing up to this point, you're saying, well, does 6 points help you? Not really. It's a one-score game. There were going to be so many more points scored in this game, and there were. When we turned it over on downs, it was 27-17. The final score is 34-38. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, if you don't include the final touchdown, more point scoring drives that occur. And it's a totally different football game if you kick it and you get the 3. And I hate singling people out, if Parker Clemens makes his block on this field goal fake, you're probably looking at a first down. I watched it about 50 times.
Do you think?
I do. I 100% do.
It looked like number 1 was coming across, and it would have been one-on-one between number 1 and Harrison St. Germain. And I don't even know if we get the first down. I think we get the first down because number 1 was able to penetrate further because we got blown off the ball so much. Whereas if we make our block, he's probably getting caught up in the wash in the middle there. And again, if it's Harrison St. Germain and number 1 for 3 yards, I don't know if he's going to get it, but I think from a look perspective, we got exactly what we wanted, and we got blown up at the point of attack. And we'll never know.
Again, I wish we didn't run it. Hindsight is always 20/20, but it's what happened. So, anything else on specials?
Yeah, I mean, it's just you get the ball off a turnover. Like, I feel like you just have to take the points.
Mm-hmm. It's a free possession.
You just hate to be in a situation where you say, I can't believe we didn't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I respect the aggressiveness. I just don't know if that was the move.
Do we want to talk about, I made a huge mistake, Patrick, bringing up a trend, and we fell into the trend again of viral moments.
This was the you had one job moment of the Billy Ray week.
Yeah.
Where Billy Ray comes on last week and says, after the safety versus Rutgers, he says, oh, what will the Hokies go viral for next week? Viral moment of the week in Hokie Nation, because there's a long list of them. And unfortunately, we brought that segment up quite early, and Billy Ray incited the next viral moment. So unfortunately, if you listened to the post Rutgers podcast, the what will the Hokies go viral for moment of the week this week was most certainly overturning a catch that was ruled a touchdown on the field. Clearly indisputable.
Yeah, that was your Hokies viral moment of the week. I'll say this. I think Pry handled his presser great. I was super pissed. I think he was super pissed.
He looked so mad.
It
looked like he was fighting back tears,
It did. Probably was.
Saying that was a tough one right there. I hope they got that call right. To take it from our kids, our coaches, our fans, I hope they got it right.
Yeah.
And I felt how pissed he was. He also says, this is Andy Bitter's tweet, Pry on what he told the Hokies in the locker room. They're hurt. I could tell them I'm proud, but that ain't helping them right now.
I think that his sentiments, I think this was his best press conference. I'm not sure if that's like a award or like plaque we could put up. I did think that it was a great press conference. I think he was extremely raw and extremely human and didn't say like the buzzwords that we hear a lot after losses. Obviously, this was a pretty extraordinary circumstance. I left feeling this way. I think the mantra that Virginia Tech can fight for the rest of the season as they stared, 2-3 in the face, going out to Stanford, really, really disappointing September. I think the rally cry of this team needs to be, they don't want you to win. Like, the ACC doesn't want you to win. Refs don't want you to win. Your fan base has got you up against the wall. Nobody believes in you. Everybody was patting you on the back, and now everybody thinks you suck. And if there's something to play for, I got to be honest, every single practice, every single film session, everything on the top of their mind has to be two things. I want to stick it to Cam Ward in Miami, and I want to stick it to the ACC. That is, like you said, moral victories. It starts with Stanford, and you should be on a world tour of I need to see Miami again. It has to be like heroin. I'm not saying do heroin, but that's what it has to. I'm serious. Like, that's what it has to. That's what your mind has to be like, is I refuse not to see this team again. And if you handle business, you have a great chance to go play them again. And I would do just about anything for us to play Miami again. I really would. To go down there and play like that against those sets of circumstances and on a road game, and just, I would be obsessed with the opportunity to play that team again. And it doesn't matter that you're 2-3. If you win out, you're probably playing them in the ACC championship. And that seems pie in the sky, far away. If Virginia Tech comes out and plays football the way that they did on Friday, they can beat any team in this conference. Any team. Anywhere.
You don't need any more motivation than what happened in the fourth quarter in Miami Gardens. You don't. This team has it in front of them. Say, hey, do you want to go play those guys again in Charlotte? In Charlotte, the home of the place that screwed you guys over, in front of the whole country. In Charlotte, where Virginia Tech fans will pack that stadium, and Miami and their sorry-ass fans who don't actually exist because they can't even fill their own stadium won't even make the trip.
And Pat, this wasn't the body language after our last couple of games. Like, we were despondent. I think the fan base and the team need to go from devastated and despondent and I don't care to I'm angry now. Like, I haven't felt this way after any of the games. And if Virginia Tech goes out here and loses 52-10 or 47-14 or 17-35, you're probably not thinking this way. But if there's anything that you can look at from this game, it's that. It has to be that. I have to play them again.
This team has to go out there and rage win. This team has an opportunity to go out and play their next 7 games and rage win. Mm-hmm. And they should be favored in.
All right. Well, we got to stack some wins first.
We're favored at this team should be favored in the majority of the games that we have left on the calendar. I know that sounds crazy. We have 4 home games in conference. And then we go to.
Let's put it this way, Pat. I don't care what Vegas thinks. You're more talented than every team we play. The only team that's a toss-up is Clemson. That's it. Like, whatever Vegas thinks, if Friday, September 27th, Virginia Tech comes out and plays, they can beat anybody. Period. I don't care what the line is. I don't care what FPI says. I don't care what advanced analytics say. That team can beat anybody.
I know that this football team is 2-3 and have lost some really, really tough games. I also know that losing is the biggest motivator. And I also know that this team loves their freaking staff. Like, I'm not in that locker room, but I can get a good idea that I don't think this is a locker room that's going to get pulled apart from each other. You guys remember 2022, how this team showed so much fight at the end of the season, even though we were just getting pushed off the ball. We just didn't have the talent that the other teams in the ACC had. And this team really never, ever gave up. And the same thing happened in a lot of the games last year, a lot of the losses last year. This football team never gave up. I think that's the biggest consistency that we see from this staff, is that they keep their teams focused and motivated as far as when the going gets tough. I think the players aren't going to lose focus. I think the players are going to play for the staff. I think the players are going to play for each other. But I think all in all, the way that we saw things unfold as a fan, it's like that Leonardo DiCaprio line, "You have my curiosity, now you have my attention." I mentioned how the casual fans are gone after the Rutgers game. The Miami game brought so many people back to the table because they want to see what this team has.
Yeah.
There's a lot more from what we saw on Friday night that we could see in the remaining 7 games, 4 of them being at home in front of our fans. So I'm pretty fired up to see what we do at Stanford on Saturday. It's really hard to look at a 2-3 team and say, I can't wait for the next 7 games. I'm excited.
Pat, that was tremendous. I think I don't know how we just turned press conference notes into closing comments, but it's going to answer every question that everybody has about this team in these next 7 games. Let's move on to, let's move on to some questions that we have from letters from the lunch pail. I'm kind of lost here. What is this? The ACC question from Justin Rogers that we were going to talk about. Okay. Given the events that transpired on Friday, would you like to see Virginia Tech exit the ACC at some point? If so, which conference is the ideal landing spot for the Hokies? Pat, you have your conspiracy pants on, so I will let you take this one.
There's no Virginia Tech fan, no Hokie fan out there is not feeling sour about the Atlantic Coast Conference right now. You have to feel sour about this relationship.
Yeah.
Do you feel sour, Billy Ray?
I feel pretty sour. Yeah.
We got absolutely cheated by the ACC. This is a conference that has done us really no favors other than letting us in 2004. We've been a great member of this conference. We have a top 10% fan base in this conference. We have won several championships in this conference and represented well with the resources that we have.
Television numbers every single week, sellout crowds,
invading other cities all the time, just having a proud fan base that, quite frankly, a lot of the ACC schools, they don't show up. They don't. I hate being the guy that is always beating the drum of our fans are better than your fans. Fan better, bro. But at the end of the day, it's the ultimate asset that some of these institutions can have and can hold. And the ACC has made all 200 to 300,000 or however many Virginia Tech alumni and fans there are. I know there's more than that. Pretty upset with their existing relationship. So I feel cheated by the ACC. I mean, you guys go out there and defend a school like Miami because they have a 0 in the loss column and an exciting quarterback and this brand, despite only filling 2/3 of their stadium every single time out the last decade. And I'll even go to this point saying their fans are some of the most heinous humans in college football. And if you think that's crazy, I implore you to go to a Miami game and just see for yourself what some of these people are like. That's not even me stretching. That is just talking about my experiences and experiences that I've heard from other Hokie fans.
Not you, Danny Boy Kane.
We love Danny Boy Kane, and there are some good ones, but I mean, even just on the internet, oh my gosh, like, can you guys put together a sentence in a YouTube comment? Go to our Miami preview and read the comments, and you will lose brain cells. So many brain cells evaporated from my brain. I just can't believe that the ACC is going to go out and defend a team like Miami and a program like Miami. Also, like, it has been so fun to see fans from every fan base jump on us, jump on our bandwagon against this machine and this man and this deep state of the ACC and the Miami Hurricanes that are just, oh man, clearly fired up about the topic. So yes, Justin, I know you asked the question, would we ever leave the ACC? I think this is a good way to open that dialogue. I really do. I don't know what this is going to look like in the next 5 years. I think we've been a great ACC member. I think we've carried the flag. I think there's a lot of my friends who would say, Bryce Chalkley, for example, loves being a member of the ACC. Haven't gotten to ask his opinion yet after Friday night, but I think this gives us an opportunity to say, you know what? Maybe we should get the heck out.
Can I want to add this, and actually you talked me into this before the podcast. I would really like to see, I know it will change nothing. It will have zero impact on the win or loss. I really would like to see something from Witt or from Tim Sands on this game. Not to be hyperbolic, the economic impact of this result and just the eyeball impact and how this changes the trajectory of everything. When I felt like we were going to win this game, which was basically the entire second, third, and fourth quarter, the thought in my head was like, it's amazing how college football can change on a single result, on a singular result, one football game. And we can talk about moral victories and everything else, but it doesn't mean anything to Brent Pry that we almost beat Miami in 2024. It doesn't mean anything for Kyron Drones. It doesn't mean anything to the fan who's considering going to the game and spending $70 on a ticket and $100 on gas and $300 on a hotel room. Like, that has no impact on anything. To take something like this away in this egregious of a fashion, and Pat McAfee, Nick Saban, Paul Feinbaum, every single person in the college football atmosphere is talking about it, I would really like to hear something from one of them. I just wanted to put that out there.
I think it's a completely reasonable ask to say, hey, Witt, hey, President Sands, can you guys just put out a statement and tell Hokie Nation that you care?
Because I know they care. And to not say something in light of this,
it's kind of a big deal. If we're in the SEC, the AD is saying something. Like, if this happened in the SEC, the AD is putting a statement out.
Yeah,
like,
you're getting a letterhead. You're getting a letterhead from the University of Alabama or Auburn or anybody. And also just to tie a super knot on the officiating thing, Josh Pate talked about this a few weeks ago. What are the ramifications? Like, I'm not asking for anybody to get crucified or flogged or thrown off a building or tarred and feathered. I'd just like to know what happens. Like, do they have like a lunch and learn on Tuesday where they're like, hey man, Jerry, you really screwed this up, man. Like, you're going to have to clean toilets for 2 weeks. Or, hey, Jerry, really made us look bad. I'd like you to tweet out an apology. I think David Hale put something out where he was like, I really would like to see the USFL rule where you can hear on the intercom what's being talked about and how you arrived at the situation. I know Andre Adelson put out a statement from the ACC explaining it, but the lack of accountability for what seems like every single week there is a monumental screw up in officiating in college football, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, is insane to me. It's crazy. And the lack of accountability is awful. Pat, I know we had a segment here to go over what happened all around the ACC. I got to be honest, I don't really give a shit what went on in the ACC or the rest of college football. We can talk about that later if that's okay with you.
All I'm going to say is we spent our hard-earned money on some poster board and some Crayola markers and the transportation to get to Uptown Charlotte tonight. So I would love to see a statement on Tim Sanderwitz's Twitter.
Letters from the lunch pail. Robbie Emerson. As much as I want to say the ref completely screwed us and how much I think he's biased AF and the ACC didn't want their Golden Boy team hurt, I also am the first to say we shot ourselves in the foot with some calls you can never leave up to the refs. I agree. I think, Pat, I don't mean to do like a repotables. I think we did a good job talking about our mistakes and our shortfalls combined with the officiating. And I sent this text in a couple of group chats last night. We cannot overcome officiating, a top 10 team, and clock management gaffes and win a football game. Like you just can't do that. And we had all of that. And ultimately, like we can say the reason we lost the game was because of the last call. And while that may be true in some regard, the officials blew the call. They shouldn't have called it a touchdown, in my opinion. They overturned it when they shouldn't have. There's more than one reason we lost this game. The thing that's frustrating is the team played well enough and was prepared well enough by the coaches to have a game plan to win the game. And there are several factors, as there are in every single football game, of why we lost the game. It just was that there were a few of them that were outside of our control from referees that impacted the results of this game. And it was so heinous and in your face and on the last play of the game that is the last thing that you talk about and the worst taste that's in your mouth. That makes it that much worse.
The Sugar Bowl against Michigan, Virginia Tech outplayed Michigan in every phase of the game, and I think doubled them up in yardage, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't seen that box score in a very long time. But Virginia Tech also made some critical errors in that football game. We tried to fake a punt when Danny Cole was punting. We had a field goal blocked in the first quarter. There were several gaffes in that Michigan Sugar Bowl that we should have never gone to overtime with Michigan to begin with. And a lot of that is lost. We contained Denard Robinson. He didn't look good at all that night. And we let a Brady Hoke coached Michigan team beat us because we shot ourselves in the foot. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. When you shoot yourselves in the foot, a top 10 team is going to take advantage of that. And in this case, leaving it up, don't leave it up to the refs. You have to leave no doubt. And you can't let the refs, who are never going to lean Virginia Tech's way, and we'll talk about this in one of the next questions, especially on the road. It's just not going to happen.
Speaking of that question, Hokie John at This Is Home Beberg would truly like to know, when in the history of Virginia Tech games has Virginia Tech benefited from a highly questionable call that resulted in a Virginia Tech win? Seriously, any ever? Unbelievable question, Hokie John. This year alone, we have gotten shafted in the Rutgers and Vanderbilt game by the fumble rulings. In the past, this is just 2019, the Kentucky first down fumble at the end of the game on, I think, their last drive. The Notre Dame no safety call on the kickoff where he kneeled it after coming out of the end zone, and after the game they say, yeah, we screwed that up, our bad. Hand up, our bad. I know you're going to have on the maroon and orange colored glasses, but I really can't think of a time where we were like, oh man, dude, we really lucked out with that call to win a game.
I would think like maybe some basketball games here and there.
Yeah.
We played in so many one possession basketball games over the course of the last couple of decades. I think what Seth Greenberg was still the coach, and Derwin Kitchen on Florida State, it looks like his fingertip was still touching the ball when he released it as a buzzer beater, and then they waved it off and said his finger was touching the ball in the ACC tournament. Maybe that one, but I think it was pretty defensible by Virginia Tech. So no, I don't know. I don't know if there is any real Oh yeah, we got away with that one.
Yeah, I can think of a couple times where the ball bounced the right way that had nothing to do with officiating, like when Stephen Peoples' fumble was recovered in the end zone against UVA, or when UVA left the ball on the back of the rim against our basketball team, but that had nothing to do with officials. I think officials just hate Virginia Tech. And again, I promise, if you're listening to this for the first time, we're not the guys who get on here in Virginia Tech colored apparel and like complain about officials. I don't think we've ever done this. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you are familiar with us, you can drop in the comments, oh, these guys never talk about officiating. That's actually the end of the podcast challenge. Say Pat and BRM never talk about officiating.
And then say Apple.
And say Apple. Apple could be the word of the day too.
I do know the Miami fans are going to be all over this. They're going to be cry more, whine more. Yeah. They are all over us on Twitter right now. But let's see. Chris Rumsey and T-Bone both asked this question. What do you do to fix the clock and timeout problems Pry has shown throughout his career? This is year 3, and we're still making time management mistakes consistently. Kind of reminds me of, remember Mike London in 2000? We called him Time Cop because Mike London used to be a cop, but he couldn't manage the game from a time perspective. So Time Cop was the nickname.
I'll say this too. Mario Cristobal is awful at time management. They, I think, last year were 1-4 or 0-4 in one-score possessions. They literally lost the Georgia Tech game because of Mario Cristobal. It's literally his fault. Like, he should have gotten the game ball from Georgia Tech. I'll be honest. Lane Kiffin has one of these guys at Ole Miss. Tough comp coming off of a loss to Kentucky. I do think it would be very helpful. And if Coach Pry already has this, then hand up, I'm wrong. But when it cut to him and he called the timeout late, it didn't seem like anyone was next to him. And I do think that he would really benefit, because there are other coaches that do this, that have somebody that stands right next to coach all game. They have a clipboard, probably with some analytic decision-making things. And their entire job is to watch the clock and make sure that we're not in a bad position from a clock standpoint. I do think that we can really, really benefit from we have 1 million people on staff. We have a lot of staff members. Just one guy whose job is to do that, because we seem to have a staff person for everything, which I hope is the case. If you want to be a big boy football program, you should have a lot of people on staff. I do think that we need a time czar. Need a time czar next to coach. Just checking out the clock.
The amount of money that we spend on athletics and just on football salaries, like we can carve out $100K a year for someone to just watch the clock and make recommendations. I'm sure there'd be a lot of former players or really anyone to line up and say, hey, can I do that?
I want to give a lot of credit to our guy, Grant Watson, for his work on the over-unders this week. It had to be his best job ever. So his over-under for Miami points scored was 38.5. Miami scored 38 points. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I also want to say that I did go with under. So I was right. Cam Ward passing yards, 329. He threw for 343. Again, Grant, unbelievable. And Hokies first quarter points, 3.5. Tech scored 7 points. So Grant, really, Grant Watson, it's more like Los Grant Watson Vegas. Really, really good job. I'm really hurt. I really am. I hadn't called so many people and had really just tough conversations like that in a long time. And I'm very interested to see what the rest of this season looks like. I'm devastated for our players. I really am. To come out, play that way, I'm devastated for our football team. I really like this football team, and I really hope 3 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, 10 weeks from now, this was the turning point of the season. Moments like this make or break you, and we'll see what happens. So,
should we do some shout outs, some programming updates, some Stanford, 3:30. I think it's on the ACC network on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. I will be in Charlotte for the first time. Pat will not. I'm not traveling for the first time in a while. We're working on a special interview. We're not going to say a name yet because it's not confirmed. I think you guys will be really excited about it. I know I am. And then also with our Stanford preview, before that goes out, I will be welcoming Juliana on the pod to recap our Clemson trip. I was at Clemson Stanford this last week. My first time at Clemson. Cool game day experience, even though I was pretty bummed out the day before. That is what I have. It really, Pat, I can't think of a team that has been punched in the rib cage as much as we have through 5 weeks. It actually feels like this football season has taken years off of my life. I'm kind of at a loss for words. I really am.
It's hard. I am excited to watch this football team play another football game, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I really needed Saturday to recover. I'm ready to attack the week. I'm ready to go 1-0 on Saturday.
We got to get through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday first.
We do. No, I'm we'll see, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, 90 minutes of us just going at it, talking about this tough football game. Can I
just say this, Pat? I do want to mention, and I do think that we owe Rutgers fans, Miami fans, and Virginia Tech fans who are gluttons for punishment a lot of credit. But we have done numbers that we've never done before in terms of just YouTube on the game previews and game reviews. I mean, in the last 30 days, I can't believe to say that people have watched 7,310 hours of your face and my face. It's pretty unbelievable. I feel pretty bad for all of you. Nice. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Your comments and your likes and your subscriptions do help us out. So thank you. And shout out to Heritage Hall, who is now proudly represented at the top of our YouTube channel video. Yeah.
Shout out to our Section 5 Club members and some more Clemson tickets that we will be giving out very soon. Join the Section 5 Club today. Check it out on our website, sonsofsaturday.com.
That game's going to matter. That Clemson game's going to matter. That's the goal. Make that game matter. Games in November, make the game matter, please.
Thank you to our newest member of the Founders Club of the Section 5 Club, Jason Blanchett. Great sitting with you for the Rutgers game. And that's all I got, Billy Ray. That's a podcast.
Kill it. Crush the week, guys and gals. We can do it. We can do it. Toodaloo.